Do you feel the pressure to grow your business, but doing so feels a bit like drowning? Welcome to Slow Growth Business, the show for business owners and leaders to quiet the noise and lead your business to success, one day at a time, slow and steady. If you feel your business is running you and you're ready to run it, you've come to the right place. Now, here are your hosts, business coaches Jimmy DeGroat and me, Kyle Bullock.
So, hey, everybody, welcome to the Slow Growth Podcast. I'm Jimmy DeGroat, and you can't see him, but that's Kyle Bullock right there.
Hello. Today's going to be a little bit different format for us because usually we don't really always let each other know the subject that we have picked out to talk about.
Yep.
And this is one where I texted you just a little bit ago and I said, I've got something I want to talk about for my own sake. And I was just going to call you because I was feeling discouraged. Jimmy's my encourager, man, in this business. I was going to call him. I was like, you know what? Let's just record it. This is an honest conversation. This is what we would have on the phone, because I thought this is something that our people need to hear, because I need to hear it too.
I do want to start off by saying, yes, you did literally text me minutes ago. But here's the thing. The fact that you texted me, I love that, because you have a person, you have a sounding board, I have a sounding board for when we're feeling frustrated or what have you. And my hope is that all of you can somehow find a sounding board, have that person, because it is such a privilege and such a wonderful thing. I just know what it's like to go at it alone. I've done it for almost 10 years. So to have you here, let's work this out together.
Literally, I texted you, got in my car, drove to the studio. It's like 10 minutes away. And I kept thinking about the biblical verse, the whole proverb, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another.
Yeah.
And man, you're my iron in this. You sharpen me, and I leave our conversations feeling smarter and better as a result, and encouraged. I hope that's what's the case for our listeners, for anybody running a business. You get so lonely so quickly trying to do it by yourself. Have someone there who's your encourager. You still have no idea what I'm discouraged about.
No.
Let's just get into it. So yesterday, kind of all week, I was meeting with and consulting with a number of different businesses that I'm either involved in or I've got clients in. All of the businesses that I was speaking to this week, for the most part, let's save a few, they were all experiencing some kind of existential crisis. They were really frustrated. There's a struggle going on in their business, and it's causing them to feel like they may not survive. Not only will they not grow, but their sales have dipped, or they're facing a real crisis of, can we even grow our company to survive and pay everybody? It was an outside pressure that was causing this angst. That was a common theme. They were all experiencing some outside pressure that was causing them to feel like they can't survive as a company, and they're frustrated by this. I would ask them the question, why do you think that your business is in the position that it's in right now? They had a common answer. They didn't say it exactly the way I'm going to say it, but it all ended up having something to do with this. They all kind of said in the same way, the economy. If the economy's in the dumps and my business is hurting as a result. We're recording this now a couple of weeks out from the American election. And so some of them gave the response that, it's an election year and my business is hurting because people don't like the election. As a consultant and a coach, I've heard that many, many times. I'm sure you have too. The election, the economy, whatever. And that frustrates me as a coach, because there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
Elections happen. The economy is something I can't snap my fingers and change. So it's a problem that I've been given that I cannot solve. So for me, as a coach, my instinct is to go, well, if it's a problem I cannot solve, I just need serenity to deal with it.
Yeah.
I need peace to deal with it and focus on the things that I can solve. So we would continue the conversation, and there was a lot of frustration about the economy. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of the companies that you and I have worked with at the same time in the same kinds of industries, right? Adjacent industries to these struggling companies who are thriving right now. They're growing and they're thriving. And I kept thinking, well, it can't be both and. If the economy is so bad, one company, one state away, can't be suffering so much more than the other because the economy. That can't be the case. Why is one company thriving and the other one blaming the economy? For me as a coach, I'm discouraged because I heard it over and over. And, just to be honest with listeners, we're humans too. And so when you hear a bunch of heavy stories and frustration and people who feel like their business is failing, at the end of the day, it's like, well, that's a lot of heaviness that you had to take on. And I've got to find a way to release that heaviness so I don't take it home with me and let it pollute me. And I want to give them great solutions. So that's why I felt heavy. And I thought, what I want to do is have a conversation with Jimmy about a common excuse or common reason people have for why their businesses are struggling, especially at a time like this in the zeitgeist of the world.
Right.
So Jimmy, imagine I was a business, a company who is facing struggles. And I've come to you and I said, I need your help. My sales are down. And you ask me, well, why? Why do you think that is? And I go, Jimmy, it's this darn economy. It's the darn election.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just nothing I can do about it. And I shrug my shoulders and I look at you. I need you to talk some sense into me. What would you say to the business like mine who is frustrated that the economy is hurting me? What do I do, Jimmy?
Well, the first thing I think of is I've got some really good friends in the jewelry business, in the music business, and a few in the furniture business. They do not struggle during election times. My opinion, this is Jimmy DeGroat's opinion. My thought is that the election is an excuse. If I'm looking to get an engagement ring, I do not give Rud who is going to get elected or whatever. It's about me. It's about my moment in time. If I'm going to buy a grand piano, it has nothing to do with who's in office. That's how I feel personally. Now, if I'm going to purchase a business or if it's going to be a large enterprise or something like that, yeah, maybe. Okay. But the people that we're talking to, I got to call a little BS on that. Let's really examine what's going on in your business or what's going on with you in the leadership of your business. Because again, I got to still point to my 8 guys and gals that are doing amazing and always having their best year ever. Case in point, the jewelry business. When 9/11 happened, we had our best Christmas ever. Okay. When the pandemic happened, many jewelers had their best Christmas ever. Many music stores had their best year ever. People are buying guitars and learning how to play guitars in all their free time. So I got to call a little BS on that. Let's dive into your business and how it's being run and how you're leading your business, how you're marketing your business. And you and I know there's a plethora of little examination points where we can look at, okay, you saw stuff in one that recently we had that was, oh my goodness, you are over inventoried with memo stuff that's been sitting there for years. Your staff's not excited about it. Okay, so we got called in on, why isn't my staff excited anymore? Well, you found a very objective reason for that. Overall, I got to say, let's just call BS on that whole thing and let's look at truly what's going on with your business, because I think the answer lies there.
So I totally agree. I could look at the data over and over and over throughout the course of modern history and show how elections and how economies are actually quite predictable and have less of a consequence on small business than we often think.
Right.
Now, data doesn't always convince. In fact, I think it rarely convinces people to take action. So let me give you an example for one of my companies that I was speaking with that hopefully we're going to go back in time to when they made a big error because of this subject and see if we can't help some of our listeners and people not make the same mistake that this company made. So let's go back to the year, it was like around 2020, 2021. We all remember what happened then. There was a big pandemic. This company had $250,000 in assets that they had put into an investment portfolio. So they had invested it into the stock market. And they were trying to get some growth on it so they could build an endowment, money that they could have for a rainy day. Well, the day comes that the markets turn down and the stock market goes, It's looking really scary. So these guys get together and the board makes a decision at that time. They go, we need to pull all of our investment out of the stock market and put it into ultra conservative investments to save us the pain of loss. They experienced about 10 to 20% loss in their portfolio in that time. So they pull out of the market, they put it into a conservative account because they were trying to save their investment. They were reacting, I'm going to hang on to that word, to the circumstances around them, the economy, the election, etc. Now, fast forward here 4 years. Because they had done that, over the next 4 years, their investment only grew to zero growth.
Okay.
They lost out on all of the gains.
That's what I call conservative.
It was back. They lost money because for a number of reasons. They went so conservative on their investment because they reacted that they lost money that they could have gained, and inflation ate up some of their investment. Their accounts back to where they were 4 years ago.
Yep.
So not only did they not grow, they lost out on opportunity. And we showed them that had you just stayed the course, you stuck to the slow growth plan that you had initially started before you made that change, not only would you have gained back your losses, you would have grown by 20% over the course of 4 years if you just stuck to the plan and didn't react. So now they're trying to figure out how do they get themselves out of the pickle. Let's go back in time to that business where a lot of people might be right now is they look at the outside pressures pushing on them and they go, man, I got to make a reactive change right now. What would you say to that company to save the pain of future losses, but also help them deal with the crisis in the moment that they're in right now?
I guess the question I have, and I don't know if it's wisdom, but it's just a matter of looking at what's done before. I have never seen anybody call an audible mid-plan that is like, oh my gosh, I'm glad we did that. Or I'm glad we hastily decided to do that. Now, maybe if you're talking about a burning building or something like that, then of course I understand we have to make those kinds of decisions. But all you're trying to do when you do make those hasty decisions is you're trying to predict the future. And that's not a very promising outcome, is it? I just haven't seen it. Show me. And if we have listeners out there of somebody that called an audible in the middle of something and made a hasty move, fired somebody or what have you, I'd love to know if it worked out.
I'm sitting here thinking about that in my own experience. And the only times that I could think of something, I can't even think of a specific moment, but the only time that I can think of a reactive change like that, making any good long impact, was because of a pure accident. I mean, they just accidentally worked out for the better, or they stumbled upon some innovation that they didn't realize they needed.
Yeah.
And they only looked back in hindsight and said, that was a good idea.
Right.
They didn't know that at the time.
Right.
No one could have known it at the time.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yep. It's like day trading. I mean, your people were doing day trading and all of a sudden you get I don't do it. It's a very tough game. I've got friends that do it and they're involved in crypto and things like that. And it's a high stress job trying to figure out and predict the future. And good luck. That's all I got to say is good luck.
Funny story about that. Warren Buffett made a bet. Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, greatest investors who's lived. He makes a bet a couple decades ago with a hedge firm who does day trading. He bet them that he could beat them in the market over like 10 or 20 years by just sticking with a company that was slow growth. He invests in these boring companies, boring on the outside, but they're cash flow positive. They're doing consistent work. They have little ups and downs, but he just sticks it in there, leaves his money invested, and he forgets about it. The day traders go out and they're trying to pick out the highs and lows and react, right? Of course, you can already tell me who won that bet at the end.
Right.
Warren Buffett does hand over fist better than them. And they knew that the hedge firm knew that they lost years in advance because they could never catch up with the slow growth gain.
Yeah.
And in the end, of course, because they placed like $1 million wager that went to charity. And Warren Buffett's advice to people who are watching was consistency is king. Create and grow a business that's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Change the things you can, have peace about the things you cannot, and have wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
If you have a business that's struggling, that's frustrated about the economy or about the election, it's often to me an indicator that you are not consistent. And underneath the angst that you're feeling, the truth is that you don't have a consistent business, and that's what you're most frustrated by.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to blame an election. It's easy to blame the economy because you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you can blame the boogeyman on
Yeah.
your situation. But companies that do well change the things they can, and they stick to a plan of consistent, steady growth, and they don't make short-sighted reactions to a situation like that.
Okay, I've got a not an analogy. This is a true life scenario. A lot of times what we see, especially in the retail world, is fourth quarter advertising goes through the roof, right? We start seeing Christmas ads in September, and everybody's out there with their messaging. Whenever I've worked with anybody, what I've learned from Roy Williams down in Austin, Texas at the Wizard Academy was, talk to people, own an audience. Don't try to take over the world. Don't try to buy and own the world. Own an audience. I don't care if it's high school football on the radio, on an AM radio station, or if it's billboards in your community. Whatever it is that you can afford, own that audience and speak to them all year long. If you try to jump in the advertising pool on November 25th, good luck. But the idea here is and this is just an advertising scenario or a marketing scenario, is that we're speaking to people in a very salient message, meaning something that's really important to them, not ad speak, but something that's relevant to them that we stick in their brains. We do this in July. We do this in March. We do this in early February or January. We don't have to do it at Valentine's Day or Christmas time. Now, I'm not saying we don't do it then, but the thing is, if we do that and build that slow, steady real estate in people's brains, when it comes time to purchase those big times of the year, they will think of you because you're in their head from September. And that's slow and steady. I mean, it's a perfect scenario because a lot of people take their big wad of advertising cash and throw it in December 1st to the 25th. I tell you what, when I started employing that slow, steady, constant, consistent message, owning just what I could afford, I began to overcome that audience. So I began to own them, and they would come and see us. They would come and see us. And actually, in December, I actually cut back my marketing. Crazy. I actually cut back my marketing a little bit in December when everybody was out there in the sandbox jumping around trying to make noise. It's just a perfect application of what you were just saying.
And the flip of that is true too. There are so many people who will hold on to dollars or changes or opportunities. One of the greatest times to buy a business was in 2020. It really was.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I can speak from experience. Okay. At the time, it wasn't, but if you had a plan in place already, it was a wonderful time to buy a business. It all comes back to having a plan, which we've talked about on this podcast, and sticking to that plan. Now, I'm going to end with this to bring it home, Jimmy. I started by saying I was discouraged as a coach because my clients, my companies were discouraged. And my hope was that we could have this conversation, share it with them, and in doing this, give them an opportunity, a pathway forward that says you don't have to live victim to something you can't change. Mm-hmm. You can create a business that, even in light of difficult circumstances that seem too big to change, you can make changes. You can have growth that is positive and steady and consistent. So let's bring this home if you can. Let's speak to those businesses right now that have listened to this and said, okay, yeah, but Jimmy, Kyle, the economy, the local government, whatever, is
The street being repaired in front of my building.
exactly. There is a circumstance pressuring me that's difficult. And what do I do? You say the steady, consistent growth, but where a lot of these companies are feeling that way because they're going, where do I start? And so in a couple of minutes, can you give them a starting place to say, all right, I'm not going to make the excuse anymore of the economy or government. I can change what I can change. But Jimmy, Kyle, what can I change? And how do I start doing that?
The first thing I would do is if somebody's feeling like the water's coming up to their nose is, first of all, relax, get into a position of, even crazy enough, I'd call it meditation, because you're not going to make any good decisions in a hyperactive state. You have to relax. And whenever I talk to people about listening to a book, I say, get in a car, go drive, get away from your business. So that's the first thing, is you've got to get into that, the building is not falling down this afternoon state. Okay. And then secondly is something that you are a big champion of. And that is, instead of trying to conquer the world, let's focus on the top 10% of our customers. Okay. What can I do? And I loved what you did in one of our first management classes that you did. That's available at trainretail.com, management. Is you said, call up 100 of your customers, call up 30 of your customers and ask them. And you got very specific as to what to talk to them about right then and there. But how can I influence a few people? And or what's the tool or what's the weapon I have right here that I can wield right now? You know what? That's going to make some massive changes right off the bat. So, it's something very simple, but you've first got to relax, and then you need to get into a creative state of mind instead of a survival state of mind, and then start making small changes like that.
I love the advice. And I'll be honest with you, I was at a point yesterday where at the end of the day where I couldn't even think. I had heard so many stories, I couldn't even think about helping solutions. And this morning, as we record this, I feel like, yes, I couldn't have said it better. You said it so beautifully. Relax and realize that you have a business and there are fans of yours who still love you.
Yeah.
Start there.
Let's go back real quickly here, just real quickly, to that state of mind, that relaxed state of mind. When we're in a creative state, we're in a relaxed state, okay? A gazelle out in the African plains, when he is being chased by a lion, he's not in a creative state at all, okay? He is in a survival state of mind, and his body is making actually decisions for him. He has very little time to think. He only has time to react. That is a very unhealthy state of mind. Our bodies experience that often when we get into a high worried state of mind or anxiety. And what do we call it?
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight. Exactly. And it's not meant to stay that way. It's not, but yet a lot of us operate in fight or flight every single day, and they're pulling their hair out. So the first step, and I learned this from a good friend of mine, Larry Bellata, who is an amazing marriage counseling guy, is you got to get into a relaxed state of mind, and you will make changes when you're in a creative state. Last night, I got a phone call and I texted you about it. A gentleman who's hiring a new manager and looking for a solution. I'm building a new store, et cetera. And it's getting into a high anxiety state. And then dude, just watch one or two of Kyle's videos. You will get into a relaxed creative state in 1 second.
Well, you know what? I'm ending this conversation feeling better because to me, I can't wait to share this with the people I've spoken with and with those listeners out there, because so many are heightened, and their heightened anxiety was exhausting to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting in a relaxed state of mind. But when you're around that anxiety a lot, it gets you kind of amped up. And I knew I just needed to start this morning with a different tune and going, all right, let's relax and have a conversation. That's so I feel better. I hope our listeners and those companies I'll share this with feel better. I feel like we know what to do now. Little changes every day make the difference. Stay the course.
Yep. So, hey, folks, Kyle at trainretail.com or Jimmy at trainretail.com. Send us your thoughts, your conversations, the things that worry you about your business. Let's chat about it and let's see if we can help you. I think we can. I think we can.
I think we can too.
We hope you leave this episode a little better than when you first began. If you'd like more resources to grow your business slow, steady, and consistently, check out our on-demand video catalog at trainretail.com. Or if you have a question or frustration we can help address in your business, write to us about it. We love to help solve big, ugly problems. So hit us up at kyle@trainretail.com or jimmy@trainretail.com. Good luck out there, and we will see you next time.